So I went to see Birds of Prey a while back, and contrary to what you might think, no, I didn't need a desperate hashtag designed to prop up a failing movie getting its teeth kicked in by a blue cartoon hedgehog to convince me to see it. No, my own stupidity and masochism was enough for me to pay 10 of my hard-earned pounds to absorb Deadpool's retarded feminist sister into my brain. And make no mistake, that's what this is, DC's attempt at their own Deadpool. And, imagine my shock, it doesn't turn out quite as well. Gee, DC, I'm starting to see a pattern, aren't you? So the story begins with Harley Quinn, ex-therapist, partner in crime and lover to the Joker, relaying her past to us through a cutesy animated segment narrated with her oh-so-quirky and thick New York accent, and if you find that shit annoying, get fucking used to it. It continues incessantly throughout the entire film. So Joker, rather uncharacteristically, makes a sane decision and kicks her to the curb, presumably for not being the Harley Quinn in the animated series, and so she reacts by ramming a conveniently placed tanker filled with petrol into the Ace Chemicals factory where she and the Joker consummated their relationship by, quite literally, becoming pale imitations of the characters they're based on. 4 minutes earlier, Detective Renee Montoya investigates the multiple slaying of a group of gangsters, which will later turn out to be the work of another comic book character, Huntress, also effectively bastardized by this film, and expertly and bravely fends off the brutal mansplaining inflicted upon her by her partner. You go, girl! That's gotta be the worst thing that's ever happened to a Latino lesbian in Gotham City, and you handled it with aplomb. Meanwhile, Roman Sidonis, aka Black Mask, is after some diamond in order to fund his vague city-dominating gangster bullshit, and ends up hiring a pre-Vigilante Days Dina Lance, aka Black Canary, who looks nothing like she does in the comics, and I'm guessing that's the case because they already had a blonde white woman in the film, and Hollywood nowadays does casting by picking out colours in a Dulux chart. I mean, we wouldn't want neo-Nazis to accidentally like our movie or anything, I'm just saying. If it sounds like I'm having trouble explaining the plot to you, it's probably because I am. Throughout most of its first hour, the film jumps back and forth in a non-linear style that really doesn't lend anything to the film other than confusion. Yes, I know it's because it's being narrated by Harley and she's a scatterbrained lunatic, I get that, but it doesn't help when pretty much all the character backgrounds are explained in this overly rushed and spoon-fed fashion. Okay, I'm going to try and explain this, please bear with me. Roman Sidonis, the villain of the film, wants a diamond that used to belong to a crime family known as the Bertinellis, Huntress's family, who are dead. He sends Black Canary off to get the diamond, but it is pickpocketed from her by a 12-year-old Cassandra Cain, one of the Batgirls from the comics, who then promptly swallows it, foreshadowing jokes about shitting and laxatives from here on out. Harley, just as she's about to be killed by Sidonis, claims she can find the diamond because she's good at finding things. Roman, instead of gutting her like an annoying salmon and dragging her corpse behind a pickup truck for several miles like he should, decides to take her up on this offer. This results in Harley storming the police station where Kane is with a grenade launcher filled with paint, overpowering multiple officers in the process. When she finally finds Kane, locked away in a cell next to a bunch of adult hardened criminals, because that's Gotham for you, she accidentally releases all the other prisoners who, instead of attempting to escape, try to beat up Harley for no adequately explained reason. Now, I personally was never under the impression that Harley was all that great a fighter. I don't know what the new comics are making her out to be, but honestly, fuck the new comics. The only Harley that exists to me is the version in the animated series created by Paul Dini and Bruce Timm. The Harley that was actually a funny, charmingly insane, and often tragic character that actually had an interesting relationship with the Joker. Here they've made her into a mess, a parody of 90s girl power chic with more STDs than charm, devoid of any and all sympathetic traits. Now this is a woman I would sleep next to with one eye open and a gun under my pillow. They can't even seem to get her fighting prowess down. One minute she's taking on the Gotham PD single-handed, the next she's having trouble with a drunk 5-foot-tall Latino lesbian with no weapons. And don't get me started on Gotham PD here. This is Gotham fucking City. Every officer here should be decked out to the tits in body armor, grenades, firearms, and spare fucking firearms. Hell, they should each have their own mini nuke. And even if they don't, it's Harley fucking Quinn. You're telling me you can deal with jetpack flamethrower-wielding maniacs and crocodile-faced mutant freaks, but you can't take down a 90-pound white woman in booty shorts and a midriff top armed with nothing but a grenade launcher that fires confetti? I have problems with all the fight scenes in this movie, but we'll get to that in a moment. The villain, Roman Sidonis, is played as the oft-warned-about man-baby, spoiled beyond belief and prone to flying off at the handle at even the perception of having not gotten his way. In other words, it's the Last Jedi method of male villain writing. As a result, he isn't anywhere near as intimidating as he should be, even as he orders his right-hand man, Mr. Zaz, one of the only things I feel this film got right, to slice people's faces off while they're still alive. The aforementioned mansplaining in the film was actually copped to by Ewan McGregor, who in an interview promoting the film said, and quote, "What interested me with Birds of Prey is that it's a feminist film. It is very finely written. There is in the script a real look on misogyny, and I think we need that. We need to be more aware of how we behave with the opposite sex. We need to be taught to change." Well, maybe you do, Phoebe-Wan, but the way I deal with women is perfectly appropriate. And how do I deal with them, you may ask? Simple, with great emotional distance. But please, carry on. Misogynists in movies are often extreme. They rape, they beat women, and it is legitimate to represent people like that because they exist and they are obviously the worst. But in the Birds of Prey dialogues, there is always a hint of everyday misogyny, of those things you say as a man you do not even realise. Ewan, you misunderstand. I am perfectly aware of the things I say around women. If you're not, then it is you who needs to reevaluate your communication skills. I empathise though. Women are scary, what with the cooties and the turning into a werewolf once a month and whatnot. But given time you will soon see them as I do. The thing that occasionally comes up and talks to you and attempts to hug you while you're trying to write a review of a bad movie. The film takes on mansplaining, and it's in the script in a very subtle way. I found that brilliant. You know what, Ewan? I actually agree. It was subtle. In fact, it was probably the most subtle thing about this movie. Not that I'm begrudging what is essentially a Harley Quinn movie, and really that's what it should have been, just that, for not being subtle. That would be stupid. What I do begrudge it for is being a largely incomprehensible, ham-fisted feminist pander flick that never really manages to establish any connection between its female lead characters beyond the superficial "I got boobs, so do you girl" power one. By the time the end of the film rolls round and Sidonis lays siege to Harley and Joker's old pad with his army of incels, the girls finding themselves backed into a corner, it honestly feels like they've all been in separate movies for an hour and a half. Especially Huntress, whose running gag throughout the film is that she calls herself Huntress, but everyone else calls her Crossbow Killer and she gets annoyed at this. Way to rip off Guardians of the Galaxy movie. Huntress has a fairly interesting, if not generic, revenge-driven backstory here, but they turn her into a clown for lolzors. Nick Fury syndrome strikes again. After a series of annoying fight scenes, Roman Sidonis is blown up with a grenade in a wet fart of a villain death. In the denouement, we see the girls hanging out at a local burger joint, high-fiving and chatting away like they've been friends for ages. Excuse me, movie, but you didn't earn this. It really says something that when the end of The Expendables has Dolph Lundgren's character hanging out and drinking beers with the guys after he got high on drugs, fucked up a mission, got kicked out of the crew and then defected to a bunch of enemy mercs to try and kill his old friends, and that was still more realistic than this shit. I think the message is supposed to be that women just get along or something, but this leads me to the final point of this already overlong review. Sitting comfortably? Good. So it took me a little while to realise what it was that really bothered me about the fight scenes in these kinds of movies. It's not that they're unrealistic. It's a movie, of course it's unrealistic. The problem is that feminist writers don't understand film violence. Specifically, they don't understand male film violence. Look at Bruce Willis in Die Hard, and I mean really look hard at him while he's fighting. Is he enjoying himself? No! Jackie Chan, what's he doing throughout most of the excellent fight scenes he himself often choreographs? Running away! John McClane is not enjoying himself. He's having a shitty time. Even as he bombards the villain with yippee-ki-yays to keep his spirits up and mock his opponent, he's still bleeding out his feet. The bruises and blood and sweat are what makes a fight scene powerful. The fact that McClane is hurting makes it more believable, even as he drives a car off a ramp into a chopper. You can even see this in the recent fantastic Daredevil fight scenes. With every hit you can see he's hurting. So when he finally beats them all and saves the kid, it feels like he's earned it. And this is the problem I have with the kind of action scenes I see in pander fests like Birds of Prey. None of them ever seem like they're hurting. They all just get up and flip around like it's nothing. This is because the writers don't understand. People don't enjoy violence as such, they enjoy watching people overcome adversity. But Glenn, I hear you cry into your waifu body pillow. Birds of Prey is a comedy film. It's not the same as Die Hard or Daredevil. Okay, true, but the same rules apply. The violence is made funnier in a comedy film by the reaction, just as it is made more believable and powerful in other films. The Three Stooges show this. Hell, Home Alone shows this. But here you just end up with a bunch of people flailing around with blood splatter and bone cracking, and ultimately nothing is gained. Nothing is earned, and you're just sitting there wondering where your $10 went. Why Renee Montoya, a GCPD detective, is somehow in the same fighting level as someone like Huntress or Black Canary, and why, after all the explosions, gun battles, and assorted violence that's been going down over the course of the day, has Batman not showed up? Overall, everything about this film is unearned, forced, compressed, muddled, and generally a chore to watch. The characters display no chemistry or connection to one another, and the villain is a Last Jedi-style man-baby strawman for the writer to live her power fantasy through alongside all the dumb as fuck men bad moments sprinkled throughout. Avoid this film at all costs, and watch The Villainous. It's way better. I'm DeadEye, and I hope you all rot in hell.